Welcome to the Explainer. If you strip away all the noise of the global market, you'll find there's actually a hidden operating system driving absolutely every good and service around us. Whether you're scaling a startup, managing a team, or just trying to make sense of global market shifts, understanding this foundational economic blueprint is an absolute game changer. It'll completely change how you look at everyday supply chains and business decisions.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the recipe for everything. Unpack the 4 core ingredients, look at the economic rewards, explore what drives changes in the market, and then finish up with the big picture.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the recipe for everything and how we actually build the economy.
Think about it like baking a cake. To produce absolutely anything in the modern economy, you need foundational resource inputs. We call these the factors of production. By definition, these are the basic resources required in the production process to create any good or service you can possibly imagine. Without these inputs, the whole global supply chain just grinds to a total halt. You literally cannot manufacture an electric vehicle, deploy a software update, or build a skyscraper without them.
Moving on to Section 2, let's look closely at those 4 core ingredients: land, labor, capital, and enterprise.
So here are the 4 core ingredients you need to build, well, anything. First up, we have land. But in economics, land doesn't just mean a plot of dirt. It's actually all the natural resources and raw materials pulled from the earth, like the lithium in your smartphone battery, natural gas, or the water used in a factory. Second is labor. This is the human, physical, and mental effort required to make things happen. That covers everyone from a manual warehouse worker to gig economy drivers, all the way to brilliant AI developers. Third, we have capital. Now, people constantly confuse this with just cash. But economic capital actually refers to man-made resources. Things like heavy machinery, automated robotics, and tools that make production possible. And finally, enterprise. This is the risk-taking by the owner.
To really wrap your head around enterprise, just think of the entrepreneur as the chef of the whole operation. I mean, you can have a massive stockpile of rare earth minerals, highly skilled developers, and state-of-the-art server farms, but they aren't going to magically build a profitable tech company on their own, right? It requires enterprise to actually take on the financial risk, bring that land, labor, and capital together, and take the hit if the strategy totally fails. They are the ones setting the vision.
That brings us to Section 3, the economic rewards, or the real price of doing business.
Because, let's be real, none of these inputs come for free. Each factor of production earns a very specific reward for its contribution. When a business uses land or natural resources, the economic reward paid out is called rent. When a business utilizes human labor, the reward is wages or salaries. So yeah, your own paycheck, that is just the economic reward for your labor factor. For capital, the machinery and tools usually bought with loans, the reward is interest. And finally, for that gutsy entrepreneur who absorbed all the risk through enterprise, their reward is profit. Collectively, all of these rewards, rent, wages, interest, and profit, are what economists are talking about when they say income.
All right, let's look at Section 4. What drives the changes? We're talking about shocks to the system.
This brings up a really pivotal question for anyone tracking global markets. Why do businesses change their recipes? What external forces are out there causing the quantity, the quality, and the usage of these factors to shift so dramatically, sometimes overnight?
Well, changes happen for a few massive reasons. The most obvious one is basic cost changes. If a specific raw material becomes incredibly expensive, demand naturally falls, and businesses pivot to a cheaper alternative. Then there's net migration. When populations move around, the size of the labor force dramatically shifts, which directly impacts hiring costs. We also have weather conditions impacting our land factor. Just think about how a severe drought can absolutely decimate crop yields and spike agricultural costs. And finally, government policies and subsidies play a huge role. For instance, massive government subsidies for green energy right now are totally reshaping the demand for rare earth minerals and the specialized labor needed to build solar panels.
The tension between human labor on one side and capital machinery on the other is just fascinating. Let's say a government increases income taxes on labor or introduces really strict workplace regulations. Suddenly, human workers become a lot more expensive to manage. The economic reality is that businesses react to those incentives. To avoid the higher costs and the hassle, they rely less on labor and pour their money into capital, like machinery, just to bypass those regulatory hurdles.
And we see this exact same trade-off happen with new technological advancements. It's a relentless shift. When highly efficient new technology drops,
Whether that's automated robots on an assembly line or generative AI writing code, it heavily incentivizes businesses to rely more on capital. The tech just gets so advanced and cost-effective that it makes perfect economic sense to use less human labor. The entire balance of production shifts away from human effort and straight toward advanced machinery and algorithms.
But hey, labor isn't totally defenseless here. There is a really clear chain reaction when it comes to the quality of a workforce. Step 1, an economy invests heavily in things like education, training, and healthcare. Step 2, the direct result is that the quality, efficiency, and overall productivity of human labor shoots way up. Highly skilled, healthy workers produce immense value. But that leads us directly to step 3. Because those workers are now so highly efficient, they demand higher wages, which of course changes the cost dynamic of the entire production recipe all over again.
And that leads us perfectly into Section 5, the big picture and predicting the future of work.
So, the crucial takeaway from this explainer is that the economy isn't just magic. Everyday business decisions, from running a local coffee shop to retooling a global manufacturing plant, are driven by a very predictable set of inputs: land, labor, capital, and enterprise. Every factor earns its specific reward, whether that's rent, wages, interest, or profit. And most importantly, this system is incredibly sensitive. Massive external events like shifting government policies, the relentless march of tech, and global migration patterns constantly force entrepreneurs to alter the recipes just to survive.
I'm going to leave you with this one provocative thought as we wrap up. We've seen how strict rules, rising costs, and highly efficient machines constantly push businesses toward capital and away from labor. So as artificial intelligence and robotics keep evolving at breakneck speed, what actually happens to our global economic recipe if the capital ingredient entirely replaces labor? I mean, what happens to the wages portion of our economic rewards when machines do all the physical and mental heavy lifting? It is a massive question that every single one of us needs to consider. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep your eyes open. You're going to start seeing these 4 factors of production everywhere you look.